The shattered pieces of my favorite vase lay scattered across the hardwood floor, a fitting metaphor for my crumbling marriage. I stood there, frozen, as Derek's words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. "Amanda, I didn't mean for you to find out like this," he stammered, his eyes darting between me and the incriminating text messages on his phone. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. "How long?" "It's not what you think." "How long, Derek?" I repeated, each word sharp enough to cut glass. He sighed, shoulders slumping. 6 months. The room spun. 6 months. Half a year of lies, deceit, and betrayal. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, my knuckles turning white. "Who is she?" I asked, not sure if I really wanted to know. Before Derek could answer, the front door creaked open. Iris, my mother-in-law, bustled in with her arms full of groceries. "I'm home. Derek, be a dear and help me with these bags." I watched as Derek practically sprinted to assist his mother, grateful for the distraction. Iris's eyes narrowed as she took in the scene. The broken vase, my tear-stained face, Derek's guilty expression. "What's going on here?" she demanded, her voice laced with suspicion. "Nothing, Mom," Derek said quickly. "Amanda just dropped a vase. I'll clean it up." I bit back a bitter laugh. Of course, he'd cover for himself in front of his precious mother. Iris turned to me, her lips pursed in disapproval. "Really, Amanda? You should be more careful. That vase was an antique, you know." "I'm sorry, Iris," I muttered, not having the energy to argue. "I'll replace it." "See that you do," she sniffed, bustling past me into the kitchen. "Now, what should we have for dinner? I'm thinking pot roast." I stared at her in disbelief. My world was imploding, and she was worried about dinner? I caught Derek's pleading look and knew he wanted me to play along, to pretend everything was fine. For a moment, I was tempted to explode, to scream the truth at both of them, but something held me back. Instead, I plastered on a fake smile. "Pot roast sounds lovely, Iris. I'll get started on the vegetables." As I methodically chopped carrots and potatoes, my mind raced. How had I ended up here? Trapped in a house with a cheating husband and his overbearing mother, playing happy families while my heart shattered into a million pieces. The knife slipped, nicking my finger. I hissed in pain, watching a bead of blood well up. "Oh, for heaven's sake," Iris tutted. "Can't you do anything right? Here, let me finish that." She shouldered me aside, taking over the chopping with efficient strokes. I caught Derek's eye across the room, saw the guilt and shame written across his face. But there was something else there, too. Relief. Relief that I hadn't made a scene, that his comfortable life wouldn't be disrupted. In that moment, something inside me hardened. I thought of all the sacrifices I'd made for this marriage, all the times I'd bitten my tongue and swallowed my pride. And for what? To be betrayed and belittled in my own home? As Iris prattled on about her bridge club and Derek pretended to listen, I made a silent vow to myself. This wouldn't be the end of my story. Somehow, someway, I would reclaim my life and my dignity. And if that meant burning everything to the ground and starting over, so be it. The oven timer dinged, startling me out of my thoughts. "Dinner's ready," Iris announced. "Amanda, set the table, would you?" I nodded, my mind already racing with possibilities. As I laid out the plates and silverware, I realized something. This wasn't just the end of my marriage. It was the beginning of my revenge. I couldn't sleep that night. The bed felt too big, too empty, even with Derek's snoring form beside me. As the first rays of dawn crept through the curtains, I slipped out of bed and made my way to the kitchen. The house was quiet, a rare moment of peace before Iris woke up and started her daily barrage of criticism. I clutched my coffee mug, letting the warmth seep into my hands as I stared out the window, lost in memories. 5 years ago, Derek and I had been so happy. We'd just bought this house, our first real home together. I remembered the excitement of unpacking boxes, arguing playfully over where to hang pictures, dreaming of the life we'd build here. Then came the call that changed everything. "Derek, honey?" Iris's voice crackled over the speakerphone. "I'm afraid I've hit a bit of a rough patch. The market crashed and, well, I might need to stay with you for a while." A while, that's what she'd said. But days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and suddenly Iris was a permanent fixture in our home. Our sanctuary became her domain. The creak of floorboards pulled me from my reverie. Speak of the devil. "You're up early," Iris remarked, eyeing me suspiciously. "Trouble sleeping?" I forced a smile. "Just wanted to get a head start on the day." she sniffed, opening cupboards and slamming them shut. Well, since you're up, you might as well make yourself useful. The guest bathroom needs scrubbing. I bit back a retort. Guest bathroom, as if she were still a guest and not an unwelcome lodger. Actually, Iris, I said, straightening my spine, I have plans today. Her eyebrows shot up. Plans? What plans? I'm meeting a friend for coffee. It wasn't entirely a lie. I did have a friend, Sarah from work, who'd been begging me to get together. I just hadn't planned on actually going until this moment. Iris's lips thinned. But it's Saturday. You always do the deep cleaning on Saturdays. I'll do it tomorrow, I said, my voice firmer than I'd intended. She opened her mouth to argue, but Derek chose that moment to stumble into the kitchen, bleary-eyed and disheveled. Morning? He mumbled, reaching for the coffee pot. His eyes darted between Iris and me, sensing the tension. Everything okay? Your wife seems to think her social life is more important than her responsibilities, Iris snapped. I watched Derek, waiting to see if he'd defend me, but he just sighed, avoiding my gaze. Amanda, can't you just reschedule? You know how Mom likes the house to be clean for Sunday dinner. And there it was. The familiar ache of disappointment settled in my chest. I set down my mug with a sharp click. No, Derek, I can't reschedule. And you know what? I think I'll skip Sunday dinner this week. The silence that followed was deafening. Iris's face turned an alarming shade of red, while Derek looked like he'd been slapped. Amanda, he started, but I cut him off. I'm going to get ready now. Don't wait up. As I climbed the stairs, I heard Iris's shrill voice. Well, I never, Derek. Are you going to let her speak to me like that? I didn't stay to hear his response. My hands shook as I got dressed, a mix of adrenaline and fear coursing through me. I'd never stood up to them like that before. It felt terrifying and exhilarating. By the time I came back downstairs, Derek was gone, probably hiding in his study to avoid the conflict. Iris stood at the bottom of the stairs, arms crossed. I hope you're happy, she hissed. You're tearing this family apart with your selfishness. I paused, one hand on the doorknob. For a moment, I considered apologizing, falling back into old patterns. But then I remembered Derek's betrayal, all the years of swallowed words and stifled dreams. No, Iris, I said quietly. I think you've done a fine job of that all on your own. I stepped out into the sunshine, closing the door on her shocked face. As I walked to my car, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time in years, I was choosing myself, and it felt damn good. The moment I stepped back into the house, I knew something was wrong. The air felt thick with tension, and an eerie silence hung over everything. I found Derek in the living room, his face a mask of barely contained anger. Where have you been? He demanded, his voice low and dangerous. I raised an eyebrow. I told you I was meeting Sarah for coffee. For 6 hours? He stood up, towering over me. Don't lie to me, Amanda. I called Sarah. She said she hasn't seen you in weeks. My heart raced. I'd lost track of time, wandering the city, trying to clear my head. I hadn't actually met Sarah, but I never expected Derek to check up on me. I needed some time alone, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. After everything that's happened. Oh, don't start with that again, he interrupted. I told you it was a mistake. It won't happen again. I laughed bitterly. A 6-month-long mistake? That's quite the slip-up, Derek. His face darkened. At least I'm not the one sneaking around now. Who were you really with today? Before I could answer, Iris appeared in the doorway, her eyes gleaming with malicious curiosity. Yes, Amanda, do tell us where you've been all day. It's not like you to neglect your duties. I gritted my teeth. My duties? I wasn't aware I was your servant, Iris. She gasped dramatically. How dare you speak to me like that? Derek, are you going to let her? Enough, I shouted, surprising even myself. I am sick and tired of being treated like a maid in my own home. I work full-time, I cook, I clean, I do everything around here, and what do I get in return? A cheating husband and a mother-in-law who treats me like dirt. Derek's face flushed with anger. You're overreacting as usual. Mom's just trying to help. Help? I scoffed. Is that what you call it when she criticizes everything I do? When she rearranges the kitchen without asking? When she invites her bridge club over and expects me to cater to them? Iris stepped forward, her voice sickly sweet. I'm only trying to teach you how to be a proper wife and homemaker, dear. Clearly you need the guidance. Something inside me snapped. Years of pent-up frustration and resentment came pouring out. I don't need your guidance, Iris. What I need is for you to get out of my house and out of my life. The room fell silent. Derek stared at me, shock written all over his face. Iris's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Amanda, Derek said slowly, apologize to my mother, now. I looked between them, these two people who were supposed to love and support me. Instead, they'd spent years tearing me down, bit by bit. In that moment, I made a decision. No, I said quietly. I won't apologize. Not anymore. I turned and walked out of the room, ignoring their calls behind me. I climbed the stairs to our bedroom and pulled out a suitcase from the closet. With shaking hands, I began to pack. Derek burst into the room a few minutes later. What do you think you're doing? I'm leaving, I said, not looking up from my packing. I can't do this anymore, Derek. I won't. He grabbed my arm, forcing me to face him. You can't leave. What about our marriage? What about the life we've built? I met his gaze steadily. What life, Derek? The one where I'm constantly belittled and taken for granted? The one where you cheat on me and expect me to just get over it? His grip tightened. You're being hysterical. Just calm down and we can talk about this. I wrenched my arm free. I'm done talking. I'm done pretending everything is fine when it's not. I deserve better than this, and I'm going to find it. As I zipped up my suitcase, I heard Iris's voice from the doorway. If you walk out that door, don't even think about coming back. I turned to face them both, my heart pounding, but my resolve firm. Don't worry, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. I won't. With that, I picked up my suitcase and walked out, leaving behind the suffocating weight of my old life. As I drove away, tears streaming down my face, I felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. I had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in years, I felt free. The first few days after leaving Derek and Iris were a blur of cheap motel rooms and sleepless nights. I'd call in sick to work, spending hours staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of our marriage in my head. How had I let things get so bad? On the fourth day, my phone buzzed with a text from Derek. We need to talk. Come home. I ignored it, along with the dozen that followed. But when my boss called, concern lacing her voice, I knew I couldn't hide forever. Amanda, is everything all right? You've never missed this much work before. I took a deep breath. I'm going through some personal issues, Janet. I'm sorry for not communicating better. There was a pause on the other end. Take the time you need, but we have that big presentation for the Johnson account next week. We're counting on you. Guilt twisted in my stomach. I'd worked so hard for this opportunity, and now I was letting everyone down. I'll be there, I promised, though I had no idea how I'd pull it off. That afternoon, I forced myself to return to the house. I needed my work files and some more clothes. As I pulled into the driveway, my heart raced. Derek's car was gone, but Iris's was still there. Maybe I could slip in and out without a confrontation. No such luck. The moment I stepped inside, Iris appeared, her face a mask of faux concern. Oh, Amanda, thank goodness you're back, she cooed. We've been so worried. I gritted my teeth. I'm just here to pick up some things, Iris. She followed me up the stairs, chattering away. Derek's been beside himself, you know. He hardly eats, barely sleeps. Is this really how you want to repay him for everything he's done for you? I whirled around, anger boiling over. Everything he's done for me? You mean like cheating on me for 6 months? Iris's eyes widened in feigned innocence. Oh, darling, you're not still on about that, are you? Men have needs, you know. If you'd been a better wife. Don't, I warned, my voice low and dangerous. Don't you dare try to blame me for his infidelity. I stormed into the bedroom, grabbing clothes and shoving them into a bag. As I reached for my laptop, I noticed something odd. The drawer where I kept important documents was slightly ajar. With a growing sense of dread, I pulled it open. My passport was missing. Looking for something? Iris's voice dripped with smug satisfaction. I turned to find her holding my passport, dangling it just out of reach. Give that back, I demanded. She tutted. Now, we can't have you running off again, can we? Derek and I agree it's best if we hold on to this for safekeeping. Red clouded my vision. I lunged for the passport, but Iris was quicker than I expected. She danced away, laughing. You can have it back when you start behaving like a proper wife, she sneered. Something inside me snapped. Years of pent-up rage and frustration exploded. I grabbed the nearest object, a heavy crystal vase, and hurled it at the wall next to Iris's head. It shattered spectacularly, sending shards flying everywhere. Iris screamed, dropping the passport in shock. I snatched it up, along with my bag and laptop. "I am done being your punching bag," I snarled. "I am done letting you and Derek control my life. If either of you comes near me again, I swear You'll what?" Derek's voice cut through the air like a whip. He stood in the doorway, his face a storm of anger and disbelief. What the hell is going on here? I looked between them. Derek, the man I'd once loved more than anything, and Iris, the woman who'd made my life a living hell. In that moment, I realized there was no going back. No fixing this broken family. "I'm leaving," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "For good this time. And if you try to stop me, I'll tell everyone exactly why." Derek's face paled. "Amanda, please." But I was already pushing past him, down the stairs, out the door. As I drove away, hands shaking on the steering wheel, I knew I'd just burned the last bridge. There was no safety net, no going back. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. For the first time in years, I felt truly alive. The days following my dramatic exit blurred together in a haze of anxiety and sleepless nights. I threw myself into work, desperate to prove I could still handle the Johnson account presentation. But my mind kept drifting back to Derek and Iris, wondering what new schemes they might be plotting. On Friday afternoon, I found myself wandering into the local art gallery. It had always been my sanctuary, a place where the chaos of my life faded away. As I stood before a vibrant abstract painting, I felt the tension in my shoulders begin to ease. "Beautiful, isn't it?" a warm voice said beside me. I turned to see an older gentleman with kind eyes and silver hair. He introduced himself as George, the gallery's curator. "The way the colors blend and clash," I mused, "it's like looking at emotions made visible." George's eyebrows rose. "That's quite an insightful observation. Are you an artist yourself?" I laughed softly. "No, just an admirer, though I used to paint years ago." We fell into an easy conversation about art and life. For the first time in weeks, I felt myself truly relaxing. As we talked, I found myself opening up about my recent troubles. "It sounds like you've been through quite an ordeal," George said sympathetically. "But you know, sometimes life's greatest challenges can lead to unexpected opportunities." He told me about an upcoming art restoration project the gallery was undertaking. "We could use someone with your eye for detail and passion for art. Would you be interested in helping out?" My heart leaped at the possibility, but reality quickly crashed back in. "I'd love to, but I don't have any formal training. And with my job—" "Think about it," George encouraged. "Sometimes we need to take risks to find our true path." As I left the gallery, my mind was buzzing with possibilities. For the first time since leaving Derek, I felt a glimmer of hope for the future. That feeling was short-lived. When I returned to my small apartment, I found Derek waiting outside my door. "Amanda, please," he said, his voice cracking. "We need to talk." Against my better judgment, I let him in. He looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes. "I'm sorry," he began. "For everything. The affair, not standing up to my mother. I want to make things right." I steeled myself against the wave of emotions his words triggered. "It's too late for that, Derek." His face hardened. "Is it? Or is there someone else? I saw you at the gallery with that old man." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you spying on me now?" "I was worried about you," he shouted. "You won't answer my calls, you're missing work, and now you're hanging around with some strange man?" "That strange man showed me more kindness in one afternoon than you have in years," I snapped. Derek's eyes narrowed. "So that's it? You're throwing away our marriage for some art project?" "No, Derek. I'm saving myself from a marriage that was destroying me." He stood up, looming over me. "You can't just walk away from everything we've built. What about your job? Our house? You have responsibilities." As he ranted, I felt a strange calm settle over me. I realized that this, his anger, his attempts to control me, was exactly why I'd left. "My only responsibility," I said quietly, "is to myself, to my happiness, and I can't find that with you." Derek's face contorted with rage. He grabbed my arm, squeezing hard enough to bruise. "You're not thinking clearly. You need to come home now." In that moment, everything became crystal clear. I wrenched my arm free and grabbed my phone. "Get out," I said, my voice steady. "Get out now or I'm calling the police." He stared at me in disbelief, then stormed out, slamming the door behind him. My hands shook as I sank onto the couch. I knew this wasn't over. Derek and Iris wouldn't give up so easily. But for the first time, I felt truly certain of my decision to leave. I picked up my phone and dialed the gallery's number. When George answered, I took a deep breath. "That art restoration project," I said. "I'm in." The art restoration project became my lifeline, a beacon of hope in the storm of my crumbling marriage. Every moment I wasn't at my day job, I was at the gallery, losing myself in the delicate work of bringing faded masterpieces back to life. George became not just a mentor, but a true friend, his quiet wisdom a balm to my battered spirit. As weeks passed, I felt myself changing, growing stronger and more confident. The Amanda who had meekly accepted Derek and Iris's treatment was fading away, replaced by a woman I was starting to recognize and admire. It was George who first suggested the idea of the vintage van. "You've got a real talent for this, Amanda," he said one evening as we packed up our supplies. "You should consider taking on some freelance restoration work. There are plenty of small galleries and private collectors who'd love your skills." The idea took root, blossoming into a dream I couldn't shake, a way to combine my newfound passion with the freedom I craved. I spent weeks scouring classified ads before finding the perfect vehicle. A 1970s Volkswagen van, a little rough around the edges but with good bones. The day I drove it home, I felt a thrill of excitement I hadn't experienced in years. This was mine, a symbol of my independence and the new life I was building. But my elation was short-lived. As I pulled into the driveway of the apartment complex, I saw Derek's car parked nearby. My stomach clenched. He was out of the car in an instant, storming towards me. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, gesturing at the van. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "It's mine, Derek, for my art restoration work." His face contorted with rage. "Art restoration? Is that what you're calling it now? Running around with that old man, throwing away everything we've built?" "I'm not throwing anything away," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "I'm building something for myself. With my money," he roared. "You think I don't know about the withdrawals from our joint account?" I felt the blood drain from my face. I'd been so careful, only taking what I felt I was entitled to after years of contributing to our household. But of course, Derek would see it differently. "That money is as much mine as it is yours," I said, but my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. Derek laughed bitterly. "Is that what your boyfriend told you? Did he convince you to steal from me?" "George is not my boyfriend," I snapped. "He's a friend who actually supports me, unlike you." "Oh, I'm sure he supports you," Derek sneered. "I'm sure he loves having a pretty young thing to manipulate. Does he know you're still married? Or did you lie about that too?" Each word was like a knife, twisting in my gut. But beneath the pain, I felt something else growing, a white-hot anger that had been simmering for years. "You don't get to talk to me like that anymore," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "You lost that right when you decided to cheat on me." Derek's eyes widened, then narrowed. "You bitch," he snarled, thus grabbing my arm. "You think you can just walk away? After everything I've done for you?" I wrenched myself free, stumbling back against the van. "Don't touch me!" "Or what?" he taunted, advancing on me. "You'll call your art buddy? Have him come rescue you?" In that moment, something inside me snapped. All the fear, all the doubt, all the years of suppressed rage came boiling to the surface. Without thinking, I reached into the van, grabbing the first thing my hand touched, a heavy wrench from my toolkit. I said, "Don't touch me," I repeated, brandishing the wrench like a weapon. Derek froze, shock written across his face. For a long moment we stood there, the air crackling with tension. Then, from behind Derek, I heard a familiar, unwelcome voice. "Well, well," Iris said, her tone dripping with false concern. "What do we have here?" As I looked between Derek's angry face and Iris's smug expression, I realized this confrontation was far from over. In fact, it was about to get much, much worse. My heart pounded as I faced Derek and Iris, the wrench still clutched in my trembling hand. Iris's eyes gleamed with malicious delight, like a cat toying with a cornered mouse. "Put that down, Amanda," Derek growled, his voice low and dangerous. "You're making a scene." I laughed bitterly. "A scene? That's rich, coming from you two." Iris stepped forward, her face a mask of concern. "Darling, we're just worried about you, running around with strange men, buying this monstrosity." She gestured disdainfully at my van. "It's not like you. You don't know me," I spat. "You never did." As I turned to unlock the van, intent on escaping this confrontation, I froze. Long, jagged scratches marred the once pristine paint job, spelling out a single word: war. The world tilted on its axis. I stumbled, catching myself against the van's side. What? Who did this? Derek's face paled. Amanda, I swear, I didn't. But Iris's smirk told me everything I needed to know. Oh dear, she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. It seems someone doesn't approve of your extracurricular activities. White-hot rage surged through me. Before I could think, I was in Iris's face, the wrench forgotten on the ground. You vindictive, miserable old hag, I snarled. You think you can control me? Intimidate me? Iris's eyes widened in genuine fear, but only for a moment. She recovered quickly, her mask of superiority sliding back into place. I'm sure I don't know what you mean, dear. Perhaps all this stress is affecting your mind. My mind is clearer than it's been in years, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. And I see you for exactly what you are. Derek stepped between us, his face a storm of conflicting emotions. Both of you, stop this. We can talk about this like adults. I laughed, the sound harsh and unfamiliar to my own ears. Adults? When have either of you treated me like an adult? You've manipulated me, belittled me, made me doubt myself at every turn. We've only ever wanted what's best for you, Iris insisted, but her voice wavered. No, I said, my anger crystallizing into a cold, hard certainty. You wanted what was best for yourselves. You wanted a doormat, someone you could control and mold to fit your perfect little family fantasy. I turned to Derek, meeting his gaze squarely. And you were so desperate for Mommy's approval that you let her destroy our marriage. Well, congratulations. You've got what you always wanted. It's just you and Iris now. Derek's face crumpled. Amanda, please, we can fix this. I'll do better, I promise. For a moment, I almost wavered, but then I caught sight of Iris's smug expression, and my resolve hardened. It's too late, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm done. I turned back to my van, fumbling with my keys. As I opened the door, Iris made one last attempt. If you leave now, don't think you can come crawling back, she hissed. You'll have nothing. No home, no family, no money. I paused, one foot in the van. Then, slowly, I turned to face them both. You're wrong, I said, a smile spreading across my face. I have everything I need right here. With trembling fingers, I pulled out my phone and hit play on a video. Iris's voice filled the air, confessing to vandalizing my van. Both she and Derek paled as they realized the implications. I installed security cameras after the last time you tried to sabotage me, I explained, my voice steady. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave me alone, both of you. Or this video goes to the police and to every member of your precious social circle. The look of impotent rage on Iris's face was almost comical. Derek just looked defeated. As I climbed into my van, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, I felt truly free. Goodbye, I said simply, and drove away, leaving Derek and Iris standing in the dust of my old life. The weeks following my confrontation with Derek and Iris were a whirlwind. I threw myself into my art restoration work, finding solace in the delicate process of bringing faded masterpieces back to life. But even as I focused on my newfound passion, I knew I couldn't truly move forward until I dealt with the ghosts of my past. It was George who finally convinced me to take action. Amanda, he said gently one evening as we packed up our supplies, you've restored these paintings beautifully. Now it's time to restore yourself. His words struck a chord deep within me. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. The next morning, I called a family meeting. Not just Derek and Iris, but our entire extended family and close friends. I rented a small community center, my heart pounding as I watched them file in, confusion and curiosity etched on their faces. Derek and Iris arrived last, their eyes widening as they took in the crowd. I could see the panic on Iris's face, the dawning realization of what I was about to do. Thank you all for coming, I began, my voice steadier than I felt. I've gathered you here because there are some truths that need to be spoken. Over the next hour, I laid bare the reality of my marriage. The manipulation, the gaslighting, the constant belittling. I spoke of Derek's infidelity and Iris's tyrannical rule over our household. And finally, I played the video of Iris vandalizing my van, her vicious words echoing through the stunned silence of the room. I'm not here to ask for pity, I said, looking each person in the eye. I'm here to reclaim my story and my dignity. The reactions were immediate and intense. Derek's sister burst into tears, like apologizing for never seeing what was happening. His brother confronted him angrily, demanding to know how he could treat his wife this way. Iris's bridge club friends whispered among themselves, shooting her disgusted looks. Through it all, Derek sat silent, his head bowed. But Iris, true to form, tried one last desperate gambit. "She's lying," she shrieked, pointing an accusing finger at me. "She's the one who's been unfaithful, gallivanting around with that old man from the gallery." I felt a calm settle over me, a stark contrast to the chaos in the room. "George is a friend and mentor," I said quietly. "He showed me kindness when my own family only offered cruelty. He helped me rediscover my passion for art and my own self-worth." I turned to face Derek and Iris directly. "I don't hate you," I said, surprising even myself with the truth of those words. "I pity you. You've built your lives on manipulation and control, and now you're left with nothing but each other." As I gathered my things to leave, Derek finally spoke. "Amanda, wait," he said, his voice cracking. "I'm sorry for everything. I didn't realize." I paused at the door, looking back at the man I had once loved so deeply. "I hope you find peace, Derek," I said softly, "but it won't be with me." Walking out of that room, I felt as though a great weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, I felt truly free. In the months that followed, I threw myself into my art restoration work. Word of my talent spread, and soon I was traveling to small galleries and private collections across the country. My vintage van, now repainted with beautiful murals, became my home and studio on wheels. I heard through the grapevine that Derek and Iris's carefully constructed social life had crumbled. Derek had moved out, finally standing up to his mother. Iris was left alone, her manipulative behavior exposed, and her friends deserting her. But I found I no longer cared about their fates. My focus was on my own journey of healing and rediscovery. 1 year to the day after that fateful family meeting, I stood before my latest restoration project, a stunning landscape that had been hidden beneath years of grime and neglect. As I carefully removed the last bit of discolored varnish, the painting's true beauty emerged, vibrant and alive. I stepped back, admiring my work, and caught sight of my reflection in the gallery window. The woman staring back at me was strong, confident, and at peace. Like the painting, I had been restored, my true self emerging from beneath the layers of pain and self-doubt. As I packed up my supplies, ready to hit the road for my next adventure, I smiled to myself. The masterpiece of my life was still being painted, and I couldn't wait to see what beauty the next brushstroke would reveal.